Welcome everybody to the latest Wellington community event. So today we are hosting a webinar which is taking us back in time. So we're going back to Future PMO to understand more about the 4 eras of change. So if you didn't attend our conference, this is a really good opportunity to get an insight into some of the topics that people were talking about throughout the day, notably this one being about change management. And that's especially important at the moment. It's December, it's our personal development month. So this is a great time to consider whether your PMO, your project management practice is considering change and people as much. If this is the first time you've attended, my name is Emma. I'm the Director of Consulting Services, and with me I have my colleague Helen. Do you want to say hi, Helen?
Hi everybody. So yes, we are going back in time, not only to Future PMO, but we're going right back to the dinosaur era. So we're going to look at the different eras of change and how we can evolve our transformation across time. So we're going to be looking at 4 main elements. So we're going to be talking about defining the current state, right back to the Triassic era. This is where you can tell that I don't know how to pronounce dinosaurs or different eras. So if I get it wrong, I'm sure somebody will jump in and correct me. Once we've defined our current state, where we are, we can actually look forward. We can look at the vision. Where do we want to go? Defining that future state, taking us into the Jurassic era. Then we need to plan and manage the change. Great change doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't happen by accident. So we have to adapt. We have to manage the transformation. And once it's been done, we don't want all of our hard work to go to waste. So we need to reinforce that change. We need to make sure that what we're doing sticks, that people don't slide back into their old ways of working. So it's important to understand where change actually comes from. So change can come from sort of 3 main areas. So we have our plan changes, we have our strategic changes, things that we have decided we're going to do, things that upper management have decided that we're going to do that are going to bring us closer to our strategy. We've kind of designed our future state, where we want to get to, and we plan the change activity accordingly. Sometimes we have an unplanned change, something happens. We've all kind of been like, oh, not quite sure where that's come from. And we have to deal with it. We may have to pivot. We may have to change what it is that we're doing. And we have things like forces at work. So things like the COVID pandemic, the storms that we've had recently. We have to change what we're doing as a result of something that was completely unforeseen and completely unexpected. Either way, it is taking us from where we are today to a different place, to a different state. So let's start off with the Triassic era. So the Triassic era, we are looking at beginnings. So back in the Triassic era, obviously none of us were there, so we're just guessing. Earth is recovering from a massive extinction. Okay, we've got new life starting to take place, starting to take shape. We've got very small, agile dinosaurs. They're very much trying to experiment with survival. We've just come through this huge event. So what we're doing is we're actually looking at where we are, what exists today. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Where are our limitations? And we've got lots of tools such as SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Things that we can do to actually sit down and take that really clear, really kind of bird's eye view of where we are now. And what we want to do, we want to understand that current environment before we begin any kind of transformation. Because otherwise we might miss something. We might have made an assumption that something was in a particular way. So, for example, everybody's using a system in a particular way. That may not be the case. So it's really important to do this. And often you may hear of people bringing in consultants to help them define the current state. That can be helpful, but obviously they don't know the organisation. So actually it's good to have somebody external and somebody internal kind of working together to look at the organisation as is. We're then going to step into the Jurassic era. See, can't talk today. This is where we are looking at vision and growth. This is defining the future state. So the world is starting to flourish. Things are starting to balance out. We're starting to get larger, more confident, more dominant dinosaurs. So we're defining where we want to go. This is all about our vision for success. where do we want to be? It's a little bit like when you're planning a holiday. You know, where is it that we want to go? We want to be lay on that beach with that cocktail in that bar or whatever it may be. But you're deciding where you want to go, where that end state is. And again, it's about setting this bold and inspiring and flourishing direction. And it's all about growth. Think big. Okay. And then we come into the Cretaceous era. And this is about execution and adaptation. So things have started to become a bit more complex. Things are adapting quite rapidly. New species are competing with the old species. So the new ways of working are competing with the old ways of working. Lots of evolution, lots and lots of change, but actually it's quite volatile. We're not really quite sure where we are. So there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of risk happening, not only to the change itself, but also to our business as usual. So this is where we have to stick to the plan. We have to look at where we allocate our resources. We have to help our teams, have to lead them through past the T-Rexes, you know, into this new and wonderful place that we talked about when we were looking at the future state. So this is all about making sure we are being agile with a little a. So it's about agility. It's about communication. It's making sure that when we get those challenges, we are able to adapt, or we are able to say, actually, you know what? This is the right thing to be doing. You know, standing in the face of resistance and saying, no, this is the right thing to do. This is why we are doing it. This is happening. This is where we're going to go. This is how it's going to change. And being very clear, very calm. And if we do get resistance, ensuring that we don't take it personally. Then the asteroid hits. There is always something that's going to happen, that's going to go wrong potentially. Something unexpected comes in, but essentially the asteroid is what sort of made the big changes. The asteroid hit and lots of the dinosaurs died out. Okay. So the big change comes. We hit the button. Okay, and after this event, we're in the renewal era. Okay, you see our lovely woolly mammoth there. Looks very different to the previous pictures that we had. The landscape looks different. The old systems fall. Okay, new life emerges. This is where the mammals come in. So previously we had the dinosaurs, which were apparently cold-blooded. This is where the new species come in. It's a permanent transformation. We cannot go back to the pre-asteroid. We cannot go back to before the extinction event. So what we're trying to do is solidify these new ways of working. You know, we have to change. You know, the woolly mammoth is woolly because it's cold. He needs to keep warm. Okay. We're making sure that we recognise those successes, that we're stopping people from sliding back into their old ways of working. We want to try and make sure that these changes stick, make sure that they are adopted by everybody. Things are being used as intended. You know, if new species evolve after this upheaval, we need to make sure that things become the new normal. And I always do that when I say new normal. What is the new way of doing things? How can we ensure that people are kind of sticking to the new way of doing things? We talk about reinforcement. That could be, you know, a celebration of people doing the right thing. It could be a nudge, making things fun, encouraging people to do the right thing by making it fun. So making sure that it's not just a case of the asteroids hit, things have changed, oh well, there's nothing we can do about it. We have to ensure that what we are doing sticks. Otherwise, what's the point? What is the point in all of the time, all of the effort, all of the way of doing things? That was quicker than I thought it was going to be. So what can we do? What are the sort of key points for each of these things? So I've talked around quite a lot of it, but when we're talking in the current state, this is about asking and answering the right questions, making sure we've got the right messaging going out to people. Even here, we can start to identify potential points of resistance and we can plan how we're going to manage them. If we know that certain parts of the organisation are going to find the change particularly difficult, we can talk about how we're going to put things in place to support them, support structures, and kind of that comfort of what's going to stay the same, as well as talking about what's going to change. Defining the future state is all about supporting and enabling the organisational culture. It's about enabling those ways of working to be thought about before we define that postcard from the future. We want people to be on board with it. It's very difficult to change culture. So what we have to do when we're defining the future state is we have to be aware of that culture and think about how it can support the change and how we can support the culture with the change. Otherwise, you're going to work really, really hard and the change will fail. It has to be aligned. Planning and managing the change, we've got all of this information, all of this intelligence, and we need to use it to develop that approach. Thinking about our stakeholders, thinking about the people who want the change, the people who are going to be affected by the change. What are the success criteria? Why are we doing it? We talk about OKRs and benefits, the so what of the project. We're going through all of this change, all of this pain, for what? So being very, very clear about what it is that's going to be different when we've been through the change journey. And reinforcing the change, we can actually get quite clever. Like I said, we can get quite creative. We can have a bit of fun with it. We want to nudge people to do the right thing. We want people to find it fun, find it interesting. We want to make sure that it's just the new way of working. And before you know it, you're just doing it and you kind of go, oh, right, wasn't quite expecting, excuse me, wasn't quite expecting to be doing it as quickly or whatever. So it's really important to take each of these 4 steps in turn, because one kind of builds on the other. You can't jump straight into managing and planning for the change if you don't know where you are and where you're going. It's like getting in a car and going, right, let's start to drive down the road. Yeah, where am I? Where am I going to? It's really important to plan out that journey and plan out what you want the destination to look like.
Thank you for that, Helen. Really interesting to see like the 4 different eras and the alignment with other times in kind of the history of the planet. And everybody, if you have just joined in between, we have kind of gone back in time to Future PMO conference to learn more about this topic and the 4 eras of change in particular, or the 4 aspects of change. And one of the things that we always get asked about when we do change management activities is, what is resistance? How do I identify it? How do I deal with it? So should we just talk about that for a little bit and while people get their thinking caps on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, resistance is kind of any sort of negative attitude to your change, and it can be as simple as someone just going, oh yeah, fine, and just almost ignoring the fact that it's happened, right the way through to somebody literally screaming in your face that they disagree with you, that open aggression type thing. And there's a great slide in the change management course, which obviously a lot of this information comes from, that says people are either with you or against you. And if they're not with you, it's resistance.
Yeah, and we see in these days as well that kind of almost passive resistance where we are working virtually, so it's not as easy necessarily to spot if somebody is being resistant, because we might find that somebody always comes online, has no camera on, doesn't engage, doesn't ask any questions, doesn't provide any opinions. And in some ways, we should almost take that as resistance and try to manage it. And so it's made it much harder to identify as well, hasn't it, the virtual working?
Definitely. I mean, certainly when I was training to be a trainer, they were sort of saying, just take silence as agreement, but I think you can't do that anymore. And I think that's quite a dangerous thing to do. Just because somebody's silent, it doesn't mean they agree with you. It's probably more likely that they're just not on board with it at all.
Yeah. So identifying it, so make sure that you are looking at people's body language, that you are asking people to pop the cameras on if they can, if you are having project meetings. But any strategies for dealing with resistance? Like, what can we do? Is it about engaging them earlier? Is it about talking to them? Is it about kind of letting them just catch up? What can we do?
I think it depends, and it comes back down to the fact that actually we're dealing with people, and everyone is different. So I think there is an element of knowing your people and knowing what they will respond to, knowing what they will not respond to. For example, asking everybody to turn their cameras on. There are some people who just physically really struggle with having cameras on, and it's not that they're resistant, it's that they get so anxious being on camera, and so it's actually sort of knowing your people, knowing what they need, and having those support systems in place. Your line managers are amazing for helping out with managing resistance, because again, they know the people, they know what else they've got going on. I mean, we call them the secret weapons, don't we, when it comes to projects and change? Because if you've got your line managers on board, you're kind of halfway there, because they can help you to help their people and to help with identifying those signs of resistance and almost kind of nipping it in the bud.
Yeah, and I think there's also an element, like we at Wellington, we talk a lot about human first, and I think getting to know the people and understanding, because they might be resistant, and although you might not agree with their point of resistance, it might be valid for them. So I think as well there's an element around opening up our mind a little bit to kind of hear all opinions and being open to all opinions. And even though we don't necessarily agree, we see it as a really positive change. There is always an element of what we call a disbenefit, is for every positive thing that we try to do, that somebody will find a disbenefit, something negative that will happen. And that could be a perception rather than a physical thing. It could be, the perception of loss of control, loss of autonomy. I work with a lot of PMOs, and we're adding discipline and structure, which is taking away some of that autonomy. Whether it's the right thing or not, people will react to that, won't they?
Yeah, definitely. I've just seen actually Quentin's put a really good point in the Q&A panel, saying it's also true to accept that not all resistance is actual resistance. It could be due to lack of understanding. And how do you tell the difference? Again, I think it comes down to knowing your people and understanding your people, and actually talking to them. It's, as you say, human first. It's human beings. Go and have a conversation with them.
And I think having that education piece is really important. If we feel like historically we've suffered from a lack of understanding, it's engage people earlier, tell them the truth. Even if we don't have all the information, tell them some information. A change is coming. We think we're going to change this, but we're not entirely sure yet. It's better to be upfront than have kind of secret squirrel conversations that then people feel they're out of the loop, because that in itself will put people's backs up and make them resist a little bit easier. If you want to connect with Helen, you can find her on LinkedIn, or there's her email address, so you can contact her directly. And if you want to chat any more about any of the topics that we've talked about today, then feel free to get in touch, and we'll book a half an hour just to have a chat with you and see if we can help you with anything else. Helen, do you want to sign us off?
No, just thank you everybody for joining us and for kind of indulging our little dino theme. I had a nice comment that somebody really enjoyed it, so that's all good. Please go and enjoy the rest of your lunch break.
Thank you for joining, and hopefully we'll see you at our next event, which is next week, and we're going to be talking about PMO trends for 2026. Thanks, guys.